Hello there, Virgo. Thank you so much for stopping by for your Virgo Tarot Insights. These generally are good for about a month. What we're looking at is a life cycle. I've seen life cycles actually last for somewhere around 20 minutes, all the way up to, well, it could even go for years. It just depends how eagerly you embrace the lesson or experience in the life cycle or how much you resist it. Okay? So, as you may have guessed, we are looking at a life cycle, and a life cycle is something that sets you up to learn something or to experience something or learn or experience something at a more deeper level. So first we'll look at what is the setup, so what's setting you up for the lesson or experience. Then we'll look at the lesson or the experience, and then we'll look at what happens as you incorporate that lesson or experience into your life. Okay, so this is a general reading, so not everything I say will apply to every single Virgo. Please be aware of that. My agreement with Sacred Spirit is that most of it will apply to most of you. All right, so we've got the cards cleared. Let's get ready to put them down and see what's going on with your life cycle, Virgos. By the way, for private readings, if you feel like you would like a private reading after you watch this, you can check out my website. I also offer reiki services as well as addiction relief, and if you're in the local area, psychic parties and house clearings. All of that is on my website. La-dee-dee-da-da-da. Okay, Virgos. Mr. and Ms. Virgo. What do you have going on for your life cycle? Let's take a peek. The first thing that I'm looking at does talk to me about your environment and what I'm seeing about your environment. Now, well, let me back up. Your environment is any place where you have energy or effort invested. And so what I'm seeing about your environment is that right now, whether it's home, whether it's work, school, wherever that may be, I see that there are some walls starting to come down having to do with your environment. For some of you, that's going to be a very literal thing, like you're going to be redoing your house and tearing out walls or putting in new ones or putting big openings in walls between rooms. I've seen these come out to be very literal, but for others of you, this is going to be more about emotional walls coming down, that people are starting to be more open in the home where you live or the place where you work or where you go to school or whatever other environment you may be invested in. Somewhere where you're invested in your environment, walls are coming down either emotionally or very literally and physically. The next thing that we're looking at for you Virgos, The next thing we're looking at for you Virgos is your subconscious leanings, and that has to do with those things that go on in the back of your mind as opposed to those things that go on at a conscious level. Now these things will come up to conscious level occasionally, just not all the time. So what we have going on is that your subconscious is really concerned about some kind of situation that is not balanced in your life. And I will say, Virgos, that this does not even have to be where you're not balanced. This could be that there's somebody that has a big influence on your life that is not balanced. Now, what does it mean when I say not balanced? There are so many different ways this could come in. Your subconscious could be working on a situation that's financial that's not balanced. It could be working on a situation that's emotionally not balanced. It could be working on a situation where somebody is dealing with some kind of addiction or obsessive behavior. So there's a lot of ways that not balance can play out. And because this is a general reading, I don't want to really narrow it down and just say this is about this particular form of not balance, because this is going to be manifesting in several different ways for different ones of you. It's going to mean a different thing. So I'm going to leave that door wide open because it is a general reading. If we were doing a private reading, then we could look at that more deeply and more specifically. But for right now, for the purposes of this reading, what I'm going to say is that your subconscious is working on some situation in your life that is not balanced, and your subconscious really would like to figure out a way to bring that into balance. Okay, so the next thing that I'm looking at talks to me about two different things, actually, your learning style and your communication style. So we're going to look at learning style first. I think you've got a lot of things going on. You feel like you're having to learn in more than one direction at once, so to speak. So maybe there are things that you're having to figure out about home, and maybe there's also things that you're having to figure out about work. So this could be, and I'm just giving an example, but if you think about the meaning of it and how it applies to you, the example may or may not, but you should be able to figure this out in your life, that you're learning in two different areas. So say that you just moved into a new neighborhood that you're not familiar with, then learning around home could be learning where the best grocery store is and what are the best routes to take to get to work or to school or whatever. And then if you're learning something at work, I mean, this is pretty typical. There's always new things to be learned at work with new job skills, new expansions, new technology all the time. So, this is an example of, it looks to me like you're learning in more than one area right now. I do have a lighter sense about this, so I feel like you're enjoying whatever it is you're learning. It's not like it's forced upon you. Communication style for Virgos right now, as it pertains to this particular life cycle, I think there's a lot that you're sort of holding to your chest that you're not sharing with just everybody in your life right now. It feels to me like you may be sort of feeling your way around, seeing what the territory is like, what other people's reactions might be to the things that you're feeling. So you are just holding a lot close to your chest. You're not really communicating everything. You're communicating really what needs to be communicated, and you're just sitting back and kind of getting the lay of the land before you start really openly communicating when it comes to this life cycle anyway. Now the next thing that I'm looking at has to do excuse me, with work. And for me, work is two things, and so we're going to look at both. So work can be that way that you make a living or the way that you feel productive in your community, and it can also be the inner work that you're doing on yourself. So we're going to look at outer work first, that make a living, being productive type work. And it looks to me like, as far as outer work goes, it looks to me like, a couple of different things coming out here. For some of you, for outer work, it looks like you feel like you're putting in a lot more effort than what you're getting back as a result of the work that you're doing. But for others of you, and I would say we've got about a 60-40 split here, with 60% being putting out more effort than what you're getting rewarded. And then for others of you, your work has to do with helping people to handle either material goods or financial assets or finances directly. So material goods could be real estate, could be furniture. You could be helping people in handling and maintaining those, or making sure they're in a good position on those. You could be a real estate agent helping people buy real estate, real property. So there's a lot of different ways that can come in. Now that comes in for like 40% of you. So for the other 40% of you, it was the first interpretation that I gave, or the other 60%, excuse me. Going into that fuzzy math, gotta watch me. All right, now as far as inner work, what do we have here? I think that your inner work right now, Virgo, has to do with keeping a balance on your money and keeping a balance on giving money when it's time to give money, and holding money and keeping it when it's time to keep it. And so Virgos, you're pretty organized, and you usually pretty well have plans about everything. For most of you, I don't think holding the money is so much the work. I think that's kind of part of your personality. For most of you, rising signs, all your other signs will influence that. But for most of you, that's pretty much the way it is. So I really feel like for a lot of you, it's not so much about knowing how to hold on to your money or keep your money that's the issue, as much as it's about allowing yourself permission to give sometimes, whether it's money. Doesn't have to be money. Can be giving of your time or of yourself in a way that, possibly wasn't planned, but you just see that there's a need there. So there is some inner work that has to do with finding that balance between giving, either financially or of yourself, and keeping for yourself to make sure that you're in a good situation, whether it's emotionally or financially. Again, emotionally, if we give too much, we end up not feeling replenished, and then we have to go into hibernation mode and sort of replenish ourselves. So, that can be both ways. And I think that for some of you Virgos, this will be very financial, and for others of you, this is going to be about emotions. All right, so let's look at what's next. Virgos, the next thing that I have coming up for you talks to me about that part of you that's being grown or expanded right now. This generally comes in as a very practical, down-to-earth card. It's something that talks about your everyday experience. And what I'm seeing here is that you are manifesting the things that you want. So you're getting better and better. You're getting more practice at manifesting those things that you want into your life. That's where you're being grown or expanded right now. What we're looking at next, Virgos, is those things that you stand for. For some of you, I think you're standing up for yourself, that somebody has been criticizing you or how you do things, and you've been having to stand up for yourself and say, you know what, I've got a plan, it seems to be working, I think I'll stick with it, thank you very much. For others of you, this is actually somebody else that you're standing up for. This may be a boss or a father figure or a significant other. But this is someone that you're standing up for who is very fair, has a lot of integrity, and does have high standards. But at the same time that they have high standards for the people around them, they have high expectations. They are not asking anything that they wouldn't expect of themselves as well. So this is somebody that you're standing up for, whether it's actually yourself or whether it's a boss, father figure, significant other, someone like that. Excuse me, in your life, you are standing up for somebody who has great integrity, even if their expectations might be high, and that might put some other people off. I do feel like that's why you had to stand up for them, is because somebody's complaining about how much they expect from the people around them, this person that you're standing up for, and you've had to say, hey, he would do it. He has no problem with it. He has done it before. Why are you crying? That type of thing. Okay, so next we're looking at how other people perceive you. This is really not my favorite card to see here, and I do want to remind you, just like I remind anybody else that I do this reading for, or this spread for, is that when we look at how other people perceive you, it's not necessarily an accurate view. And in fact, a lot of times it's the view of the person that you had to stand up to. So in this case, for a lot of you Virgos, you've stood up to somebody and said either that you act in integrity or that this other person acts in integrity, and that they don't expect anything from anyone around them that they wouldn't do themselves. And the person that you had to say this stuff to sees you as someone who's kind of stepping in the middle and a little bit of a busybody, basically, like third-party interference is what comes up here. So this is somebody, they see you as, sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. And, the energy that I get off of this person, I mean, look what you just had to stand up for to this person. You had to stand up for a person of integrity, whether it's yourself or somebody else. And like I said, for some of you, it will be yourself. For some of you, it'll be somebody else. But you're having to stand up about a person of integrity too. This other person who thinks that you're meddling in the middle of stuff you shouldn't be, this really smacks of the other person that you had to defend yourself to and how they view you. This person that views you, that there's a lot of immaturity on their part, that they can't understand integrity. They have an entitlement type of mindset. And so when somebody has an entitlement type of mindset, it's pretty normal for them to think that anybody that doesn't just agree with them right off the bat is, a little bit out there or not acting appropriately or just whack or whatever. So considering what you just had to stand up for to this person, kind of not surprised that is their perception. What would surprise me is if their perception was actually correct. Okay, so anyway, everything that we've looked at so far, for the most part, Virgos, you guys will recognize most of this stuff. This stuff is probably all present tense for most of you. There will probably be a few that this hasn't really started yet, and you'll recognize it in a few days, but for most of you, you'll recognize all of this. What I will say is if you don't recognize any of this right now, either it hasn't actually kicked in yet for you and it will soon, or maybe this video just isn't applicable to you. Maybe you've got enough influence from other signs right now that this is not applicable. So what I would say is if you start to recognize this stuff happening in a few days, come back and re-listen to this video. If you're not seeing anything going on here at all and nothing happens in a few days, don't come back and re-listen. And at this point, I would shut it off. I would be like, this doesn't apply to me. Okay, so if you don't have anything going on here that you resonate with, consider that this video doesn't apply to you unless you start to recognize these things in a few days. Now, for those of you that you're seeing things so far resonate for you, then however much it resonated for you, I would expect that's how much this next part will resonate for you. And this next part, you may already be walking into it, or it may be coming up in the future. So if you don't recognize this next part, but you recognized all the first part, I would say this next part is coming to be. It just hasn't started out yet. Okay, so now that we're at full understanding of what to expect here, let's look at this next part. What we are looking at is your lesson or experience. Now, this may be future tense, or you may already be walking into it. You guys are all going to be in different places on this life cycle. You'll recognize as I talk about it. So, we have you. This is interesting. I see things really happening quickly around you as your lesson or experience, and you're having to sort of keep on your toes to keep up with all of it. This may be the universe answering prayers or enforcing affirmations that is happening quickly around you, but there's a lot of momentum, a lot of stuff happening quickly. And, with you coming up as learning to manifest and getting lots of practice manifesting every day, this isn't really a surprising thing, especially as your subconscious is working on bringing imbalance into whatever situation that was that had you unbalanced. The more balance you get, the more momentum you can build, the quicklier things can, the more quickly, I don't think quicklier is a word, the more quickly things can manifest around you, okay? So, yes, things happening quickly. I don't feel like a lot of these things are things that you have actually generated personally through your own efforts, but you are having to sort of keep up with what's going on and stay on your toes. Okay, so the next thing that we're looking at as this lesson or experience is more fully integrated into your life is we have some pretty interesting stuff. We actually have a time where you're going to be making time for yourself to slow down and to meditate. Things are happening really fast in your life, but you need some slow down time, some time to just be calm and cool and collected, and then get back out there into the fray and keep up with everything going on. So I do see you taking that time for rejuvenation. I also feel like everything moving quickly is a very positive thing because we see some security coming into the home life or into the family life. So whatever this is that's going on so quickly is really good, really positive forward momentum. And then ultimately what we have for the end of this life cycle, which actually begins the next life cycle, ultimately what we have here is that you have doors opening to you that haven't opened before, and you have choices in front of you that you haven't had before. And so you have these new opportunities. And I think that for a lot of you Virgos, you're actually going to be overwhelmed a little bit with these new opportunities and trying to figure out, okay, which one is the best one for you so that you can pick one and move forward. So pretty cool fulfillment. Like to see that. All right, so that is your tarot insights. I hope that you guys find those helpful. And I'll see you all back on the next video. Peace out.